Good. Now we're returning to the Dvar Malchut, and that deals with the subject of the Rebbe, Lubavitcher Rebbe, arriving in America in 1941. His father-in-law, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, he arrived about a year earlier in America, but he arrived basically a broken man, in body, but certainly not in spirit. And he really began this whole outreach movement to actively go out and influence non-religious Jews, educate by example or by teaching or by whatever means there were on the radio and in classes. A whole new thing in America in 1940. We were dreaming of something like that. When the Rebbe came in 1941, that added a whole new, energy, a whole new push to spreading out Judaism. Now, what's the point of spreading out Judaism when you have to spread out Judaism? First of all, Judaism has to be spread out not only to the Jews, but also to the non-Jews. But the non-Jews have a different system within Judaism than the Jews do. The non-Jews have what's called 7 Noahide commandments, which are basically being aware that there's a creator and the creator is creating all of us and providing for us, and that we should do what the creator wants. Don't kill, don't be licentious, don't worship idols. Hopefully in America, we'll see the fruits of the work of the Rebbe's, but that's the goal of Judaism. There won't be any more of these, decadence and perversions and things like that. And there won't be any more religions. Everyone will only connect to their creator who's creating them. That's pretty logical. But this whole idea, first of all, in the time, up to the time of World War II, you couldn't go around and tell, the Christians that their religion is wrong and that it's idolatry. You couldn't do that. And it was impossible to do. You'd be killed, put in jail, whatever, is hated by everybody. As it was, everybody hated the Jews. But you saw what happened in the Holocaust. Nobody helped the Jews. Nobody cared about them at all. Right? Everybody knew they were being massacred. Nobody lifted a finger. So the United Nations and England and America to help, to stop, even to bomb the, Auschwitz and Birkenau and all these places. They could have just bombed it. They would have stopped, who knows how many tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of deaths. Anyway, so we see that the world does not particularly like Jews. And especially the Jews come and tell them that their religions are wrong, which is the fact. So this was all. But when the Rebbe came to America in 1941, is this all changed? Began to change. Because the Rebbe, first of all, tremendous knowledge, tremendous understanding of human nature, incredible, the intuition about when was the right thing to do and who was the right person to do it and when and where and how, little by little, infusing into the world this feeling that God really exists and God really cares and God really provides for everybody. You don't have to pray to people or to stars or to whatever it is. And God is really keeping everybody alive, and that we have this tremendous obligation to God, and that God really loves us, everybody, Jew, non-Jew, and that nobody's ever alone, right? If people would start to realize this, then it would be a very happy world. It would cut down depression and aggression and these things by who knows how many tens of percent, at least. And that's the job of the Jewish people, to make everybody realize their obligation to the Creator, to repay the Creator at least a little bit for what He's giving us, and He's giving us everything. So the Rebbe said that this depends on the Torah. The whole thing depends on the Torah. And the Torah itself depends on the feeling of God in the Torah. We have to feel that it's God's book, because when God gave the Torah, he put himself into big trouble, because the Torah is just like a book. It's a book in the library. God is one author, and, who knows, Ernest Hemingway is another author, and there's a bunch of authors. Who says even God wrote the Bible? Maybe as Moses wrote it. Nice book, very inspiring. But who says there's a lot of books, there's a lot of religions that everyone should feel that the creator of the universe that's creating all being, he's the one that's giving the Torah. And in fact, the aspect of the Torah, God giving the Torah, is even higher than the creation of the world. It's more real, more intimate to us, more valuable. To feel this, that's the job of Chassidut Chabad. Chassidut Chabad. And that's why it says the Baal Shem Tov, he met up with the Moshiach in the upper worlds, the soul of the Moshiach. And he said, when are you going to come? There's so much trouble in the world, so much trouble for the Jews, so much trouble for all mankind. When are you going to come and alleviate all these problems? And he said, when your well springs, when your deep teachings are spread out. So it means Yefutzu means they have to be spread. They can't be kept in one place. Ma'anotecha means the deepest ideas, and Chutza means to the furthest places. The whole world, after all, is being created by God. And everyone has to realize that and feel it. And when they do, it'll be a different world. It'll be a world the way it's supposed to be. So there was a whole process, how this came to be. Yefutzu ma'anotecha chutza, how? It says there were many, many levels. First of all, there was the Baal Shem Tov. There were 7 or 9 generations from the Baal Shem Tov, and the first Rebbe of Chabad from the Baal Shem Tov, it's 9 generations to us. From the first Rebbe of Chabad, it's 7 generations. After the first Rebbe of Chabad, that he lived in Liazna, and afterwards he went to a place called Liadi. This is a mistake. It should say Liadi, not Liuradi. Mistaken. Let's see, so over here, 60. I don't know, maybe it's called that. That's something. Okay. After they went to a place called Liadi, there were Rabboteinu and Nisienu Kamadorat. We had many, many generations in Lubavitcher. And then, right around the beginning of the First World War, the Rebbe Rashab, the 5th Rebbe of Chabad, he was the 7th generation from the Baal Shem Tov, he went to a city called Rostov. And afterwards, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe had to run to Leningrad, which is now called Peterburg. And it's not called Leningrad anymore. Peterburg, like it was, that's what originally was called. They changed it to Leningrad, now they changed it back again. And afterwards, it moved to Poland, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, until finally the last stage of the wanderings of Chabad came to America. And America is what's called the Chetzi Kadura Tachton. This is called the bottom half of the world. The top half of the world is where the Torah was given. In Israel, the bottom half is the opposite side, America, South America. Shem Gufa wandered around in a few different places until finally he came to this building in Brooklyn, which is called 770. That was the address, 770 East Wing Parkway. And we can see that afterwards, just one moment, yeah. We can see that even though that all the generations that there were, the revelation of Chassidut and spreading out the deep ideas, the godly ideas of Chassidut further and further out. But Davka B'Chetzia Tachton, it didn't really start to get really out until it came to America, the bottom part of the world. That there, the giving of the Torah was not in a revealed way. When God gave the Torah, it affected the whole world. But the giving of the Torah was only in the top part. In Israel, Europe, whatever, all the upper parts which are connected to Israel. When it came to America, there was the revelation of these ideas of Hasidut, and the spreading of these deep ideas outward in more and more power, even more than in the previous generations, until the way that it reached out, which is no further than it. We can see now simply that even the furthest away people, suddenly they realize, hey, that they're Jews. And the reason for this is, like we said before, giving of the Torah below, is only in the lowest levels can be revealed the highest levels. Like it said, we brought the sentence from, what is it, from Ecclesiastes? The advantage of the earth is in everything. The earth. And as the lowest levels, that's where the power of growth is. That's where we put our feet on. That's the basis of everything from the earth. And also in spiritual, the lowest levels, they can reveal the highest. Similarly, it's also understood after Matan Torah, after the Torah was given, that only down in this lower part of the world, Matan Torah, that the Torah was not given in a revealed way, there was made the total revelation of Yitrona Eretz Kalhu, that the earth has a tremendous treasures more than anything else. As the lower that the Torah can be revealed, the more godly it is. Now, we're not talking about compromising the Torah. We're not talking about compromising the Torah. That if you compromise the Torah, that means that the world has affected the Torah, not the Torah has affected the world. If a Jew, in order to spread out Judaism, he uses a microphone on Shabbos, right? So everybody can hear his lecture and everything, but it means that what? That the world has overcome the Torah. He has made a concession in the truth for the sake of practicality. If I don't have this, nobody can hear me, right? So what are you supposed to do? Either talk louder or give 2 speeches. Figure it out. Have an assistant give a speech. Write down your speeches. Have somebody write it down afterwards or before Shabbat. Give it out to everybody so they know what you're talking about. Give speeches on Sunday. Give your speeches on another day. Tuesday. Pick some other day. And Shabbat is a holy day, and you have to treat Shabbat like Shabbat. Shabbat is not my day. It's not lecture day. The purpose of the Shabbat is to serve God, not to serve the Rebbe. It says that Shleimus, the Gilui of the Torah, the completion of the revelation of the Torah, and the inner of the Torah, that's only in this physical world. And like it's hinted at also in the address of where this place that Chabad settled, 770. 770 is the gematria of the word paratzta, spreading out. Like it's explained in a lot of places. Also 770 is also the gematria of Beit Moshiach, the house of the Messiah. The Yesh Lomo, we can say, the connection is the number 7 shows on completeness. That's the 7 days of creation. Also the 7 emotions of God. And this is how God, so to speak, reacts, how God interacts, with the world. Also how he reacts also to our prayers, and the completion of the number 7 is 7 times 7. 100 times 7, because 10 is a number of completion. So it's 10 times 10 times 7, that's 700. And together with this 710 times 7, 70. So it comes out to be 770. So it's 7, 10 times 7, and 100 times 7. And 7 is a number of completion, implying the whole entire world, which was created in 7 days. Why is it created in 7 days? To express the 7 emotions of God. Because God could have created the world in 1 instant. Why did he schlep it out for 7 days? Because it's according to this Kabbalistic principle, which is called God's emotions, 7 emotions. And therefore, it's the same gematria, the same numerical value as the word paratzta. Paratzta means to spread out, because the completion of paratzta, of spreading out godliness, namely spreading out in place and time, which says Yom Avakadma, west, east, south, and north. That's paratzta, means to spread out. This is a blessing that God gave to Jacob, Yaakov. Ufaratzta Yom Avakadma Tzafon Avnegba. Spreading out. This will bring about not by going out of time and place, secluding yourself, right, isolating yourself from the world, but davka betoch, only by means of being within time and within place. That's the whole idea of 770, the 7 days of creation, in all of their aspects, times 10, times 10. That's the whole number, the completion of number 7, Kolomer, in other words. Kolomer, in other words, that together with this, that there is spreading out godliness, which is above limitation, ufaratzta. We should not pay any attention to limitations. There's also spreading out godliness and the ideas of Torah and the ideas of the inside of the Torah in time and place. Kafi shadin b'pashtus, like the law is, b'makom ubinyan, b'habinyan tzarich liot ba'al dalet ketolim. That it's a building, 770. If you remember, we learned of a sikha that it says that there's a Gemara, and where it is in Megillah, that talks about that there's what's called the Holy Temple in Babylon. And this Holy Temple in Babylon, it moves to different places, wherever the Jews are. And this Holy Temple in Babylon is the synagogue that has most effect on all the world. But it's a place. And the Rebbe said that place is 770. 770 is also the numerical value of Beit Mashiach. In the Talmud, it says it's going to fly to the land of Israel and all together with all the other synagogues. I don't know. If it does that, then for sure we're not going to have any trouble from the Arabs. That's for sure, right? They're looking for truth just like everybody else is looking for truth. When they see that, then that maybe the Christians, they won't believe it. Could be pretty hardcore evil over there. But by the Muslims, there's no problem. I don't believe there'll be any problem whatsoever. When all the synagogues all fly to Israel, that it has to be in time and place. It has to be in a way of what's called ufrazter. It has to be in a way of in time and in place, but above time and place. This is godliness. Specifically in a time and place below, that's only when we can really express true unlimitedness. Al derech hakatuv, like it says in the Yerushalmi, the presentation of Yerushalayim, that Jerusalem will be open together in Ani Ayelem Chomas Eish Saviv. I will be a wall around them. Umakom is at this place 770, which is the gematria of Ufratzta Paratzta. This has become a source and an inspiration for spreading out the deep well springs of the ideas of Chassidut. And if you don't know what we're talking about, these well springs of Chassidut, is tune in the morning, the class right before this, and we have some of these ideas in the book, in the writings of the first Rebbe of Chabad. But call Olam Kulo, that eventually these feeling and ideas of God will be spread out all over the world. Ba'ofen shepola el ufratzta, into these deep ideas will spread outward. There's nothing deeper than it. The Yitron Eretz Kalub, that will reveal that the treasures in the earth are greater than anything else. From the earth. And to add on, Sachakol v'Shlemos, that the sum totality and the completion of these 70 years of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, right? This speech the Rebbe gave was in 1991. And the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, he arrived in America. No, I'm sorry. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, let me see. Give me a moment here. That the 70 years of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was in the Chetzi Kadar Takton. All right, good. the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe passed away at the age of 70. And when did he spend his last years? They were in America in 770. Where he lived for the last 10 years of his life. This afterwards gave the power to our generation, the seventh generation from the first Rebbe of Chabad. There should be a complete revelation of this number 70. The full emotions of God should be revealed, even 700, 7 times, 10 times 10 times 7, that it should be in this physical world. Alpi, according to what we said before. So the previous Rebbe also, he lived for 70 years. In the last 10 years of his life was in 770. And this gives power for the 770 to be spread out over the world. Now, this might seem a little bit grandiose, but on the other hand, it's not. This is reality. And let me just give you a small example. I think we've done this before, but the Lubavitcher Rebbe once said, this is all this argument, who was in Eretz Israel first, and the Arabs were here first, and they were here from time immemorial, and they have examples and pictures and whatever it is. And the Rebbe said, it makes absolutely no difference if no Jew ever lived in the land of Israel, ever. Because God promised it to Abraham. And he added on that he also promised it to Isaac and to Jacob and to Moses. But he promised it to Abraham. Now here's just one little promise to one person. The land of Israel is in the news every day. Everybody's arguing over who it belongs to. Who has the rights to the land of Israel? Everyone, right? It's a whole country. It's a place that has land, it has houses, it has water. And nevertheless, the promise to one man that secures this land forever. It's the property of the Jews. That's it. Doesn't make any difference what happens. So we see that one person, and it's just a promise to one person, changes the whole identity of the physical world. And God promised Abraham that he was going to be the father of all mankind. In other words, his ideas are going to be spread out all over the world. What were the ideas of Abraham? The oneness of God, exactly what we're learning about here. And God fortified this promise when he gave the Torah to the Jewish people. Now every Jew has this power that Abraham had to make God revealed in the physical world. And the Rebbe says even more, only in the physical world can the essence of God be revealed. And that's this whole idea of 770. It's a physical building, like every other building in a physical world, something like the Holy Temple, just a physical building made from regular bricks, regular stones. It wasn't magic stones that came from some other land or some other country or planet or something. But that's where God is revealed. Says the Rebbe, the Holy Temple is a holy temple. But God wants to make the whole world holy. That's what it means. Yitron all, according to what we said before, that this all came about, but when? Kavchet Sivan, on the 28th day of Sivan. Which that's going to be next week, I think. I think that's Tuesday, Monday of next week. 1 second. When is that? Let me have a look. I have there it is. 1 second, 1 minute. Yeah, next week, Sunday night. Kav Chesivan, Asher Megale et Kocho, that it reveals the power of this third month, Sivan, the month when God gave the Torah, the third month, and revealed what's called the triple Torah, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, to the three-part triple people, Kohanim, Levites, and Yisrael. That's the whole thing of number 3, is attached to also the giving of the Torah. Why? Because the Reb Nisim Gaon is one of the Gaonim. Reb Nisim Gaon is Reb Asadia Gaon. He counts them, whatever. He explained what are the amazing things about the giving of the Torah. And this is especially the power of Malchut, the lowest of the 10 Sfirot, but also kingship. It reveals the lowest of the 10 Sfirot is the king. Kingship. It's the lowest that you learned about the 10 Sfirot. The lowest of them is called Malchut. The Yitron Ha'oretz B'Kolhu. Shemegala, that it reveals, this lowest aspect of creation reveals call, everything. That's, we said before, that's Yesod, in a complete way, and in a way that is eternal. 3 times 3 times 3. What's 3 times 3 times 3? 27. And after you finish the 27, the number that they say wraps up 27 is 28. That's only in this physical world in a way of mamash, physical. We're not talking about spiritual ideas. We're not talking about revealing godliness in some sort of an inspired way. We're talking about the whole world actually seeing and feeling the most obvious thing that there is, the Creator. To see and feel that everything is being created for a purpose, and every human being is created. When we feel that, that'll bring out our potential, our infinite potential for good. And now let's learn the Yom Yom. One second, I'm going to move this over here. In reply to a question that someone asked when he was in a private audience with a Rebbe, he said, my grandfather, his grandfather, that was the Samach Tzedek, the grandfather, I'm sorry, that's right, the grandfather of the, oh, let me get this right, I'm sorry, said, which year was this? 1874, 75. That's right, yeah. So this was from the Rebbe. Okay, so the Tzemach Tzedek said to my father, to the Rebbe Marash, the Yetzer Hora, the evil impulse, is called also the animal soul. Not because it's destructive, crude animal. Sometimes it can be like a fox, the most cunning of the animals. And great wisdom is needed to perceive how it works. Sometimes it can be like a simple tzaddik, having fine traits of character. We're talking about the evil impulse. Sometimes the evil impulse can put itself in a garment of doing Torah and commandments and being a really refined person. We're talking about the animal soul inside of us. The animal soul manifests itself of each person according to his character. One person may suddenly all of a sudden have a tremendous desire to learn Chassidut or to meditate deeply. But the truth is, this is only the Yetzer Hora. And it brings a person to not do what he's supposed to do. Right? So he's supposed to learn with somebody. All of a sudden he has this desire, no, I want to pray with great, and he has this tremendous inspirations to pray and to love God. But he was supposed to learn with somebody. He was supposed to help somebody, but he didn't. Or he was supposed to finish something in the Torah. Suddenly gets desire to go on and help people. Where'd you get this desire from? Why didn't you have it before? Right? Because this is just to come to distract you from what you're supposed to do. Take a general principle. Anything that actually leads a person to actually serve God and has any sort of opposition, no matter what it is, that opposition is the scheming of the animal soul. And there's anytime you know what you're supposed to do, and suddenly something comes to disturb you, that comes from the animal soul. Distractions. My father said, and this is the previous Rebbe speaking, until then I did not know that there can be a pious, religious animal soul, let alone a Hasidic animal soul. And your animal soul will tell you to go and do Hasidic things, learn Hasidic, but really you're supposed to be doing other things. Right? You're supposed to be helping people. You're supposed to be learning something else. You're supposed to be fixing it. You're supposed to be making a living, who knows what. And suddenly, all of a sudden, you get this tremendous desire to sit down and learn. It could be that this is, just because it's a whole urge to do a good thing, doesn't mean necessarily that it's good. That's why it's very important to have, a person should have a friend, and also to have a counselor, it says, Oselech Harav, to make for yourself a rabbi that can give you objective advice and help you look at yourself objectively. Have a good day with Moshiach. Now, God willing, at 3:00, we'll be back and learning Chumash. Today, we'll learn about the 24 gifts of the Hasidim, of the 24 gifts that God gave to Aaron. Yesterday, there was a big confusion. I don't know what happened in our class, but that last part of it got cut off. So I'll have to see what got cut off, and I'll try to make it up. Shalom uvracha. Have a good day. Thank you very much for tuning in, for participating.